Hello, everyone. Hope you guys had a great week. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are talking about overwhelm because overwhelm is something that we feel in all areas of our life over the course of our lives. And overwhelm very often leads to us drinking or over drinking. So, this is a topic that many people that I work with deal with or we work on. So I know this will be helpful to you. And even if it's not specifically for your drinking, which I have a feeling you're all going to find that it is at some point, this will be helpful to you in other areas where you feel overwhelmed. So, for those of you who are listening to this podcast on an audio version, you might want to head over to Spotify video because I am going to be using some written, I have a chart here, and it might be easier for you to follow along if you're able to see this chart. But I'm going to be using the coaching model, which I've discussed in other episodes, and that includes 5 areas. So the first is a circumstance. The circumstance, after the circumstance, we have a thought about the circumstance. So that's the second thing, circumstance, thought. Then your thought determines how you feel. Feeling is the third thing. The feeling drives your action, which is the fourth thing. And then your action creates the results, the fifth thing. So we're going to be looking at really the first 3. So our feeling is overwhelmed. And that overwhelm leads us to drink or to drink more than we wanted. And the result is we wind up feeling like crap. We broke a promise to ourselves. I'm sure you have a long list of results that drinking when you didn't intend to led you to. Okay, so I've broken out categories or reasons of why we feel overwhelmed into 4 different things. So the first one is that we feel like we have too much to do, and that makes us feel overwhelmed. So you might think that having too much to do is a circumstance. You might have a list, a page long of things you have to do, and you think that these are all facts. This is just too much to do. It's a fact, it's the circumstance. But it's not the circumstance because there is someone out there in the world who doesn't think that's a long list of things. There's someone out there who has more things to do or who thinks it's a long list, but it's not a big deal. It's doable and feasible to get done in the time that you have. So that's what makes it actually a thought, because a circumstance is something, just a fact that everyone would agree on. So you have your list of things, then you have your thought about it. If your thought is, I have too much to do, or I don't have enough time to get this all done, then your feeling is going to be overwhelmed. So we can come at this from pure productivity, looking at it at the actions that need to get done. So you can take a list of paper and just write all those things down if you haven't already. Often we feel overwhelmed because all these things are floating around in our head, and we think that maybe we're missing something, or we just have these general big things in our minds. I want to develop a website. I want to run a marathon. We have a big end goal and it feels overwhelming. So you want to write everything down. And again, this might not only be about drinking, this might be something else in your life. We feel overwhelmed because of our jobs, our kids, our spouse. Traveling could be overwhelming. Holidays can be overwhelming for us. So you just want to write all the facts out, all the things that need to get done. And then you want to break them down into steps. So if we're using the example of a website, what are the things that need to get done? the home page. You'll prioritize. I want to get the home page done first. Well, what needs to go on the home page? I need to write copy. I need to choose a photo. I need to choose my domain name. I need to choose the server I'm going to use. Write all those pieces out. And then, so you have them prioritized, you have the steps, you decide how much time you're going to give yourself for each thing, and then you plot that out on your calendar. You block off time to get this done. So just doing this alone often helps people feel better because, again, now you can have a thought, okay, I have a plan, a blocked off time to do this. I know what I'm going to do. We often feel overwhelmed because we're not exactly sure what we're going to be doing, how we're going to get this all done. So in terms of drinking and too much to do, if you're thinking about the way end goal, that can be very overwhelming, going from feeling like you don't have control how much you're drinking every night, you're drinking more than you want to be, to how am I going to fast forward? I remember when I started to stop drinking and I was in some Facebook groups with other people who were trying to stop drinking, and people would post that they were at 3 months, 6 months, a year, many years of not drinking. And while I thought on one hand that was inspiring, on the other hand, I thought, I don't even know how I'm going to be able to get through a week. The thought of doing this for months and years seemed overwhelming to me. So you want to, if your end goal is too overwhelming, let's dial that all the way back and think about what you're going to do in just a week or just a day. One day at a time helps people. And my program is different from AA, but I think that that's a great motto, is to just deal with one day at a time. If looking ahead a month or even a week or two is too overwhelming for you, I can totally relate to that. Okay. So the second category is that we often feel overwhelmed because of fear or uncertainty about the future, about the things that we're doing, what the result of them is going to be. So starting with our general life, if you're thinking about changing jobs or moving somewhere or getting into a different relationship, you may want to do that on one hand, but on the other hand, you're thinking, what if the thing I choose isn't as great as I think it's going to be? What if it isn't even better than what I have now? So that's often a big fear. In terms of drinking, there's fear and uncertainty. Number one, am I going to be able to do this? Am I actually going to be able to control my drinking? Am I going to be able to stop whatever you're deciding to do? And number two, the fear and uncertainty of what's my life going to look like once I do? How am I going to have fun? How am I going to be able to go to a party where I don't know people and feel comfortable without drinking? How am I going to relax at the end of the day? How am I going to go to a sporting event or go on vacation or go to a concert and not drink? There's fear from all of that. So we want to think about what, instead of focusing on the thing that you're scared of, what if things worked out the way you want it to? What would that look like? We often spend so much time thinking about the possible negatives, but we're not thinking about the possible positives. So what if your life is just as great or even better if you are drinking less? What if you feel better about yourself? You feel healthier. You don't feel hungover in the morning. You don't beat yourself up in the morning for over drinking. You don't wake up with regret or anxiety or fear about what you might have done or said last night. What if you go out and still are able to have fun with people? You're able to connect with people even better because you're not drinking. You're really focusing on the conversation and the experience you're having. What if you drink less and you're not constantly spending time thinking about drinking? You don't have that drama. It's totally not a big deal if you go somewhere and you can't get a drink right away, if there's no waiter or bartender there to serve you, if you go somewhere and there's not alcohol available. Think about all of that. Think about still enjoying that. Okay, category number 3 is expectations from other people. So we often feel overwhelmed because we think that people are expecting us to either do something or do something in a certain way. And that makes us feel overwhelmed. That if moms, I know you can relate to this, that there's expectations from other mothers or the school or other, class moms about how much volunteering for the school you're going to do, how much you're going to contribute, helping out kids in their sports, carpooling, all of these expectations of others leads you to feel overwhelmed. So, a great question to ask yourself is, so you can put in the circumstance line here that somebody expects you to, and whatever it is, right? And so, what's your concern? If it's causing you overwhelm, your concern must be that you're not going to either do it or you're not going to do it up to these person's expectations. And then maybe they will think negatively of you, say something about you. So those are going to be the facts, exactly what the person says. In order to make you feel overwhelmed, there's a thought in there. So ask yourself, what are you going to make it mean if you don't live up to those expectations? That's the key thought here. That's going to tell you why you feel overwhelmed. If your thought is, I will have let that person down, that person will think that I'm not responsible or not a good mom, that's going to make you feel overwhelmed. So that is the thought that you need to question and come up with a better thought for you. And on the farthest other end would be not caring what other people expect from you. But if it's hard for you, if you're a people pleaser, which many of us are, and that's another thing that can lead to over drinking, being out at a party and wanting to please people when they hand you a drink, you think it will make them happy. If you can't get all the way to the other end and not care what they think, what are some other thoughts that you could think that you're still helping them out, that you said you would do something and you did it? Maybe your thought is, I'm going to do it this one time, and then next time I'm not going to offer to do this. With drinking, if your expectations are that people are going to expect you to drink when you go out, and that makes you feel overwhelmed because you don't know what you're going to say to people, again, that fear comes in of, what are people going to say or think about me? How are you going to handle that? What are you going to make it mean if people think that you have a drinking problem? If people think that you're not fun? Often when we're worried about, or usually when we are worried about what people say about us or it bothers us, it's because we have those thoughts about ourselves. So if you think about it, if somebody says something to you that's completely not true, then it wouldn't bother you because you would just say, that's crazy. But if someone says something that has a bit of truth in it for you, then we often take that and have more feeling about that. So you can explore those thoughts. And then lastly is that you feel overwhelmed because there's something you don't want to do, but you feel like you have to do it. So this is another thing that I hear from moms all the time, that they have to drive their kids all over the state to different states because of the kids' sports. They have to spend a lot of money on hotels and equipment and coaching and all sorts of things related to the kids' activities. They have to be driving their kids to this place and that place, and there's just so much to do with the children and expenses and taking a lot of time. So in this case, when there's things that you don't want to do, you would rather be doing something else, I want you to ask yourself why you're doing it. You don't have to sign your kids up for sports. You don't have to drive them all over the place and stay in hotels and go to tournaments. Now, you might say to me, you don't understand. Yes, I do. I do have to do that. But in reality, you don't. You're choosing to do this. So I am suggesting to you, since you decided to do this, keep that in mind, that you made this decision. And why did you make this decision? Ask yourself that. Remind yourself of that. You made this decision because you thought it would make your kid happy. You thought it would make your kid healthy to be doing something active. You thought it would be good for them socially and developmentally to be part of a team. You are thinking maybe it will help them get into a good high school or college if they are good at a certain sport. It will give them something to do after school when they would be otherwise free and be sitting home bored. So you have lots of reasons for why you made the original decision. And I encourage you to focus on those reasons because those were good reasons to you rather than getting ahead of yourself to where you are now and thinking about the negative things and now it's taking its toll on you. Because when you have those negative feelings that this is taking up so much time and energy, and I'd rather be doing something for myself, then you're going to feel overwhelmed. So, in terms of drinking, we often have it's kind of like the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other. You really want to stop drinking. You really want to cut back on your drinking, take control of it because you want to feel better. But on the other hand, you don't want to do it. You still want to drink. You really don't want to stop. You don't want to be going through the process of feeling uncomfortable, feeling deprived, being out and wanting to have a drink and keeping yourself from doing it. So when you're having those thoughts, this is really not what I want to do, you're never going to be able to achieve your goal and do this long term if you have those strong thoughts running through your head. I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to hold myself back from having a drink. So number one, it's just not going to work long term. And number two, if you really are trying to drink less, it's not going to be motivating for you at all. You need to keep in mind your why you're choosing to do this, and keep reminding yourself that you're choosing to do this. Because if you're feeling like you're doing something that you don't want to do, you're going to feel powerless. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel upset, mad, lots of negative things because you're doing something you don't want to be doing. So you need to remind yourself that you can drink. You can always go out and drink. It's your choice, but you're choosing not to because you want to feel better. You want to feel in control. You want to keep promises to yourself. You want to prove to yourself that you can say that you're going to do something and actually do it. Okay. So again, too much to do, fear and uncertainty, expectations from others, and doing something that you don't want to do. Look at The thoughts that you're having, those are going to be key through all of this, as always. Those thoughts are so important. Okay, I know this was a lot. I'm not sure how long this was, but this is hopefully going to be really helpful for you in many areas of your life where you feel overwhelmed, because overwhelm is something that we're never going to fully get rid of, but we can take these steps and alleviate that feeling just by stopping and realizing I'm feeling overwhelmed, what's going on here, and looking at our thoughts, looking at those circumstances. All right, you guys. So as always, hang in there. I believe you can do it. I know you can do it. And I love to hear from you. So please reach out to me and let me know how you're doing, if you're struggling, how I can help you. I'd love to connect with you. Look in the show notes for links how you can do that. All right, have a great rest of the week.